You're listening to the Hero Up Podcast with Jim Simcoe. Thanks for being here today. Let's get rolling with the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hero Up Podcast.
I'm your host, Jim Simcoe.
And I'm Blake Eugene Bender.
Oh, man. What a terrible name.
Oh, God. Can you believe it? Actually, it's actually kind of a cool name. There's a Gene who works out at our gym. Right, your gym that I'm a member of, not our gym.
Yeah.
How presumptuous of me.
Very much so.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
You?
You look like you're really ready to get after. Blake is like sitting up, he's like bringing his A game today. I don't have my sunglasses.
My A game is some people's C games, though, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Today is all about how to master public speaking without freaking out. This is the thing it seems that most people are deathly afraid of doing.
Yeah.
What's your feeling about that? People would rather be in the box than actually speaking at the funeral.
I guess it's right. It's
I know I didn't make that up. I actually read that somewhere.
I like that though. It's a very accurate description of people's relationship with public speaking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it probably is just like the fear of being judged, right? Like if you feel like people are sitting there staring at you, they're looking up at the boogers that are in your nose, and you're going to stumble over your words or feel like a ninny or something like that.
Right.
But I guess do you think it is just like the fear of judgment? Is that like ultimately the layer that you dig into?
I think so. I think people just get so self-conscious about it, and I think people have such a high expectation of themselves when they go give a speech, and like I think we should also say like public. When we say public speaking, we're not talking about just going in front of giving a speech on a stage or something like that. We're talking about all different aspects of it. Close that. This is we're now taking a break as we close the door. Wow, and Blake was able to talk while he was closing the door. That's pretty impressive, dude.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So I think it's one of those things where it's like if you give a speech at a wedding, if you're giving a work presentation, these are all elements of public speaking. I actually think it's the number one skill you can have in your career is the ability to communicate, the ability to speak in public, and when we say in public, to more than one person at a time. Yeah, definitely. In my vast, and super varied career, it's definitely been the thing that you just see people who are really bad at it, and then people who are really good at it.
Do you find that public speaking, would you put under the umbrella like writing for a blog, or like you and I are speaking on a podcast right now? I tend not to feel like nervous when I speak on a podcast
because it's me.
But if you're so comforting and to look into your
plus we're also hugging the entire time. Yeah. Nobody knows this. That's why we don't film it anymore.
Every episode, things got too real. But like if you put a camera 2 feet in front of my face or something like that, all of a sudden, like I feel like I'm looking into the soul of 1,000, people or something like that. And like that makes me feel a little bit more anxious. But I do feel like those are kind of the things where I like, maybe I do need to like cultivate the skill of getting more comfortable with that type of thing. Yeah. That would probably, provide some value to me down the road. I think as you're becoming this huge Instagram
influencer, you're going to have to be comfortable in front of
the life of an influencer is tough.
It really is.
It's speak into a camera on occasion.
So far this week, we've seen you shirtless lifting. We've seen you shirtless with your dog at the beach. Yeah. And we've seen you shirtless walking on rocks.
Man, it's funny.
It's so great.
I also posted one photo with a shirt. Got the fewest likes of the week.
Get that shit out of there.
All 27 of them are. We're only in week one. We'll check in in 6 months. Yeah. I know it sells.
You know it sells. I think, but going back to the topic, I think public speaking I think you're right. Like when someone puts a camera on you, immediately you start thinking something different. I think also the minute someone goes on a stage, I mean, I've been lucky enough to speak kind of like all over the country on a variety of different topics. Yeah. And I've spoken in front of, I think the most I've ever spoken in front of was like 4,000, maybe 3,000, something like that. And that is it wasn't that much. It was probably 2,000. Yeah. And it can be nerve wracking, but I want to kind of go through the steps of how you can take that out. But I think people are so freaked out by it that they avoid it. But they avoid things like even being in a meeting with 10 other people. Like they avoid speaking up. I think of you. I think of like you guys, when you coach, anybody who coaches a small group, that's public speaking. And you see it both ways. You see coaches like you who are able to command a room, keep everyone's attention. Nobody's talking. People are focused.
Better not be.
Yeah, people are kind of
Slap
focused
them
on what
in
you're
the
doing,
face.
right? But then you see other coaches. I've been in other gyms, other CrossFit places, where they're not able to do that, and I feel bad for them, and I see like what they're missing skill wise, and then I see why the people in the back aren't paying attention.
Yeah,
because they're not holding their interest, and I think it's a travesty, because I think a lot of times those people are so knowledgeable about what they're talking about,
right.
but they're getting it's just lost in the message because they're not delivering it correctly.
It's kind of funny as I realize, and just to reiterate your same point, that like when you look at if you look at a career or somebody's livelihood or something like that at face value, you do of course have to have all the necessary skills. So, like for what I do, you have to be knowledgeable on the different subjects that you're teaching in, so on and so forth. But there are a lot of skills that you don't necessarily learn about that some people are excellent in, some people are terrible in. And a lot of those things do, in public speaking being the example we're discussing, it's so pivotal that people are like comfortable communicating and are comfortable communicating across multiple different platforms, not only in person, but also via text message or via writing a post for somebody to share with your community. And so just communication is like so vital. And if you're lacking that confidence or like not able to step in a room and just feel totally in your element, then I think it really can hold you back in a major way and like getting where you want to be.
I would agree. And I think along those lines, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this is I'm very lucky in that public speaking has never bothered me. I enjoy it. I've been doing it since high school, whatever. Lots of everything else bothers me that probably doesn't, like I can't stand snakes. Snakes freak me out. Elevators freak me out.
That's going to hold you back. That's going to hold you back.
These things are going to hold me back if I'm ever in a room.
You're probably going to look super sweaty on your next presentation. That's
probably about snakes. Or in an elevator.
On the 20th floor of the building.
But like, so it's interesting to me because it's something that's not like one of my things, but I've, in coaching other people or doing events, everyone, like people, I'll get comments from people and they'll be like, oh God, geez, how do you do that? And it's like, not like I'm some big shit, but it's just like, I'm like, wow, I don't have that gene that makes me freak out about it. So I'm curious as to why other people do it. So I started studying it. And I think that, again, people get so hyped up and they get so like, just kind of out of their mind about it that they psych themselves out. So I wanted to break it down into some things that they could do. And because we've all seen kind of good speakers versus bad speakers. I mean, sure you've seen
good speaker here on my side of the podcast, bad speaker on your side. We've all seen it, heard it, really.
Right. Because we actually haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Because we're not on camera.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm letting this hug go right now. That's it. I'm now releasing Blake from our hug. So
I totally threw off his.
You did totally. Well, you know what it is? It's because I'm drinking a different iced tea today.
Yeah,
it's a little cold out.
You're not chewing on mint like a freak.
I'm not chewing on mint like my usual, like a freak. Anyway, so let's go through some just basic rules about public speaking, and I think this is applicable again whether you're a CrossFit coach, you're in a corporate meeting, or you have to go out and give a speech. You're giving a toast at a wedding or whatever. Again, it's the number one thing you can do is communicate effectively in front of a group, right? And I think. Side note, I think back on the presentation that you and Eric did, not the last one, but the one previously, where you guys went up and we were talking about your past history and you did that whole thing. And I think one of you guys actually teared up a little bit during
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But it was one of the most impactful speeches I've ever seen. And I've seen tons and tons of people speak. And I've seen, and the reason it was so impactful is because you guys were telling a story. Right. So I think that's the first rule of all of this is that when you are going to speak, you have to be able to tell a story.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it as like, I'm not going to give a speech. I'm not going to give a presentation. I'm giving a story. I'm telling a story. And so think of it from a story perspective as opposed to thinking about it from a tried and true presentation perspective. The other thing is to think about your goals. So what do you think the 3 goals of any speech would be? Any speech, any wedding, any coaching thing, anything. If you can nail it down into 3 things. 3. I'm trying to hold up my 3 fingers here and I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So just to be clear, I was not prepared with this 3 things.
Nope. We did our usual presentation for our usual prep work for our podcast. I texted this on the way to
when it comes to public speaking, I would think, having an idea as to what you're trying to communicate clearly is up there. Whether that's what you have, is that generally in the right direction?
That is not.
Okay. Do you want to just tell me what the three things are?
Why don't I tell you the three things are? So the three goals of any speech, you have to have at least one of these three.
Okay.
And that is to either inform, inspire, or entertain.
Okay.
Literally any of those three things. So let's talk about like when you're leading a CrossFit class and you bring everyone over to the board, right? You're informing people about the workout, right? You're giving some instruction. You're telling some people like, someone says, I can't do a ring muscle up. And you're like, no, you got that. So you're inspiring them a little bit.
No,
you're also, and you probably more than anybody are entertaining when you're doing it. So you're actually doing all three of those things. But really, any presentation comes down to those three things. You're either going to inform something about someone, about something. You're going to you're trying to inspire them, or you're trying to entertain them. That's really it. If you think of any good story, they kind of all break down into that. So
I was never going to get those three.
You were never going to get those.
I'm learning as.
Tell me your favorite movie.
My favorite movie is Good Will Hunting because I know it's yours.
Oh man. I got a bunch of feels all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So Good Will Hunting, that whole story is all about, they inform you about the characters, what's going on. It's got a bunch, history. The ending is super inspiring because the guy goes to Stanford to get the girl.
To see about a girl.
Yeah. And then it's also super entertaining, right?
Yeah.
So it's got all those elements. The best stories have all those elements.
Sure.
Tell me your worst movie.
Worst movie. Tell me your worst movie, Jim.
God, Jesus.
See, these questions are tough.
They really are tough off the cuff of the head. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
We'll just say the worst movies don't have that shit. How about that?
Yeah.
So think of it as, so when you're giving a presentation, it's really
Snakes on a Plane.
Oh, God. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Not entertaining at all.
Sharknado.
Yeah, not entertaining, not inspiring.
Some people think it entertaining.
And not, like, I wasn't informed by anything on that. Like, it's because, I wouldn't say.
You were informed that Snakes on a Plane is a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
A movie.
Maybe that part. But so that's the thing is like, so tell a story. Don't think about this being something that where you're giving a presentation. I think that's the first thing. The other thing is when you start thinking about telling a story, we all have the ability to tell a story. It's something that's been ingrained since cavemen were around. And that demystifies and takes the power and the fear out of giving a presentation, because not everybody can give a presentation, but anybody can tell a story. You can tell a story about what you did today, what you ate. And
may I comment on that? Because certainly
I feel like I've been talking forever. So yes.
I've feeling like you've been talking forever too.
Probably lost so many people.
I have certainly been in multiple different public speaking settings. I always feel the most confident when I'm just kind of going off the cuff. I've been in positions like I've done, best man speeches, for example, where I felt like I had to read like every other word and things like that. Right. And, I feel as though I can be animated enough that it's not like too distracting from that, but I don't feel like it's as good of a story as when you're just like literally in the, in the mode of storytelling and talking from the heart and all that good stuff. But I'm losing my train of thought. That is,
but I'm entranced by the story.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it just kind of gives you the power. I mean, I'm killing this point. We're killing this point to death.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing is like, tell a story, don't give a presentation.
Yeah.
The other thing is some body language stuff. Don't stand with your hands in your pockets, right? Like that's something whether you're in a meeting, you're on a stage or whatever, never stand with your hand in your pocket. Don't chew gum. That's a good one. Don't slouch. That's another good one.
Don't smoke cigarettes. That's also a good thing for your health.
Not smoking cigarettes while you're giving a speech, especially if it's a speech on health.
Don't be having a meal while you're speeching.
Don't be eating.
Don't fart in front of anyone.
Don't do that.
So many advice.
I don't say that word ever. That's not a word I ever allow myself. No, I can't say that word.
Weird.
Yeah, it's super weird, but I don't do it. Another thing is people make this mistake all the fucking time. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people speak and I'm just blown away by it. They open with a joke. Why would you never open with a joke? You're a smart guy. Come on. Tell me why.
Because then it only goes down from there.
No.
Oh, you're setting me up for failure.
I know.
Like no.
Why else would you not ever want to open the joke? Is everyone going to laugh at your joke?
No, not everyone.
Are some people going to think you're an idiot for telling a joke before they know anything about you?
most people are going to be thinking that by the end of my presentation.
Yes. So yeah, it's the dumbest thing in the world. I've tried. When I first started speaking, I tried a couple times to tell a joke.
Yeah.
To start,
Do you think you tell it
failed miserably.
For you more than for them? Like you telling it to try to like calm your own nerves, you think, and get that first laugh out of the way?
No. I mean, any speech, any presentation you're doing, I think one of the biggest goals is you're trying to establish a connection with somebody in the first 30 seconds. So they haven't seen you.
Yeah.
You walk out on stage, you walk into a meeting, and they may not know anything about you or what you're talking about or whatever. But so you're trying to establish that likability and that acceptance from the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
One of the easiest ways to do it, which that used to be like old school way to do it, would be to tell a joke. You get people laughing. They think, it's funny. Now they like you because you're the funny guy, right? It's the worst thing in the world you can do.
Yeah.
Because it usually bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're never going to think of the law of averages, right? So say you have 1,000 people in the room, you tell a joke, 50% of them like it. That means 50% of them, that means 500 people think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of the big things. That's like
I'm
my
done
number
with
one.
Jokes. I'll say. I'll put it.
No more jokes and no more smiling.
Yeah.
No. But seriously, like telling a joke is better. I've done it where I've walked out, and if you make like a self-deprecating joke, like a lot of times if I've been on stage and I've got like slides and a remote control to a clicker to do the slides behind me. Half the time I can never figure out the damn clicker. I'll say to people, sorry, you're here for an hour. It's going to take me like 20 minutes to figure out the clicker. And, so if you make a self-deprecating comment or whatever, I think that goes over better, but never start with a joke. Here's another one. I think you do a very good job of this. And
Thank you. I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah. And I think Eric does a really good job of this as well.
Who's Eric?
Your business partner.
Oh, Eric
DePaula, EDP.
My brother's name's Eric,
Is it really?
Yeah.
God, you have a lot of Erics around you.
A lot of Erics in my life.
A lot of Erics. And that's to know your crowd and to plan accordingly, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about whether you're coaching, going into a meeting is, who are you talking to? Also, what time of day are you talking to them? Are you talking to them first thing in the morning when they're super ready to get after it? Are you talking to them around lunch when they're eating? Are you talking to them later on in the afternoon when they've worked all day and they're just kind of mentally checked out? Mm-hmm. Knowing the audience and knowing when you're talking to them and what their goals are and why are they there. So if someone's coming to a CrossFit class or coming to a functional fitness class, whatever, their goal is to work out, learn the movements, and get on with their day, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
If let's say that's 6 a.m. class, right? So being energetic, being very matter of fact at that moment is fantastic. For people who come later on in the day, like me, 4:30, we've worked all day.
Yeah.
And so we're mentally many times fried.
Yeah.
So we can go we can take we can run a couple minutes late because we're not going back to work afterwards.
Right.
So there's a little bit more time to connect and get people ramped up to do the workout and build their energies back up, which I think you do, you and Eric and Lindsay and Laura all do a really good job of that. The kind of understanding.
It just comes down to knowing who you're speaking to and what do they need in order to have that message communicated in that moment in time. And if you think about it, not in terms of what do you have to say, but more along the lines of what do they need to hear to receive that message. It definitely takes a level of social awareness and understanding the kind of mental state that they're in at the time, but I feel like a good communicator, they kind of have to have that.
Yeah. And I think you do a great job of that. And that's it's just knowing the crowd, where, and planning accordingly.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. Public speaking wise, one of the easiest ways to demystify this and not be nervous about it is to practice your speech. Yeah. So I think this is probably one of the best things you can do when you are speaking is to practice it 3 times. I don't care how long it is, practice it, so that it, because what invariably happens is you get on stage or you get in the room and your computer dies, or your slides don't load, or you left your notes in a briefcase and you have nothing, and then you're panicking, because you just have completely forgot about what you're talking about, and you have an hour you have to do it. This happened to me a couple of years ago. I was giving a speech down at a real estate thing on sustainable real estate, and I walk into the room and I'd given them my slides, and I think I had 40 minutes to talk or something like that. And so I'm literally going up, like they're like putting the mic on me, the whole deal. And she's like, "Oh, we can't get your slides to load."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, we're going to have to try and get it done in the next like 15, 20 minutes." And I'm like, I'm supposed to be off the stage at 3:30. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do during that time? So I just tried to wing it. And luckily I had practiced some of it. So I like, I'm sure I fucked up some of it, but like I had practiced enough of it that it came off. And I think it, I did okay because I wasn't relying on my slides. And because I had practiced it, I knew the theme of what I was talking about. And you brought up something earlier that I want to touch on is that, if you're giving a speech, like a word by word speech, a word for word speech, it sounds so canned. Mm-hmm. And usually if you give it just kind of off the cuff and you cover general ideas, it always comes out better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't you agree? Like when you've seen people?
I do. And I was going to comment that, I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a famous speech, maybe in the 60s or so, by Dr. Martin Luther King.
I Have a Dream.
I Have a Dream speech. Yeah. Maybe the most famous speech ever, but
probably right.
I remember hearing within the last couple of weeks that that speech, he was still like revising it, like as that he was like walking on stage practically. Like he was like, and the phrase "I have a dream" like came to him in the moment or whatever.
Yeah, wasn't even in the speech.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like so. How would you respond in thinking that? Because clearly, like that's perhaps the most powerful speech in the context of like the modern history.
Oh, without a doubt.
Was that in the 60s?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And if he was still revising that, maybe aspects or elements of it he had practiced, but what is the role for that like freestyle and incorporation of that versus like the practice of it?
That's a really good question. That's a good question.
Maybe he's somebody who's like just done so many speeches that he's so skillful and so like practiced in the delivery that you get that freedom when you're at that level.
He was unbelievable. I think in the speeches I've seen him, he was naturally good at it. He was a preacher.
Yeah.
So he was just naturally good at it. Very much like Barack, just like naturally good speaker in front of groups. I think it's a super personal thing. My feeling on the practice is like, I know that when I've done it, I've practiced it. Every time I practice it, I'm revising literally up until I go up.
Yeah.
And every person's style is different, right? So like my thing is I don't ever write it out. Yeah. I have like bullet points with 3-5 words of things that I want to cover during the speech. And I freestyle probably 50% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My big thing is like, I think of it as like, okay, who am I speaking to? What message am I trying to deliver? Am I hitting those 3 things? Am I informing? Am I inspiring? And am I entertaining?
Yeah.
Because I want people to leave wherever I'm talking. I want them to be like, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Similarly, but also a little bit different. I feel like I need more structure than yourself because my chaotic brain has so many thoughts that are like zooming past my brain left to right and right to left and all over the map, that if I don't have a little bit more structure, then I get too sidetracked on too many tangents and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so it's helpful for me to have a little bit more thorough of an outline or like a little bit more robust of notes and whatnot, as it just seems to allow me to like stay on track with what I'm trying to like get across. But then again, like I literally am public speaking 4 hours a day, 5 days a week to some capacity.
Yeah.
In which, it's always just like freestyling and going with the flow.
The one key you can do with some of that stuff is if you are following some type of outline, is if you are speaking to a big group, like the times you guys have spoken in here, you can always have somebody in the back room, Jess or whoever, and give you keys so that like, okay, you're 10 minutes in and like, you've got 3 pages of notes and 10 minutes in, you should be halfway done with page 1.
Yeah.
I've done that before when, just to make sure that, because then it kind of gives you the freedom to go off on those tangents because you've got somebody checking you at the back of the room. Other times, if you don't do that, you could be like, God, I just spoke for 45 minutes and I'm only on like second paragraph.
Yeah.
I think the key is to know who you are, right? To know that so it's really good that that's could be something you need to be aware of. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, I know that, I work better without the outline. Like, so if I look at an outline of 3 pages of notes, all I'm going to do is get nervous.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to look at it and be like, oh, holy shit. Like that's too much. I need like 5 index cards.
Yeah.
And have my examples set up.
You want for the examples to be charades that the person giving you your keywords performs for you. So
Obviously,
yeah.
obviously, so I could stay in the moment.
Yeah, correct.
The other thing about giving a speech that I think is really key to help you relax is to think best and worst case scenario. Right. So let's paint the picture. So
Okay. Close my eyes.
close your eyes. You're here. You're holding a big event. There's 50 people. They're expecting you to teach them on something.
I think I fell asleep.
So you're there. So you have to think about like what is the best possible outcome, and then also what's the worst possible outcome.
Yeah.
So what's the best outcome? Briefly.
Oh man, I crushed the speech. Every person wants to sign up for my gym membership, and somebody says, "Hey, that was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life. Let me buy your gym for $1 billion." And I'm like, "No, it's worth $5 billion." And then they buy it from me.
Nice.
Best possible case scenario.
What's the worst case scenario?
I have a heart attack on stage from getting too anxious, or probably a more realistic one is that the speech doesn't go that well, and the people that are there who I know and all that don't really think that much of it, and that's about it.
Did your wife leave you?
Depends how bad that speech was, I guess. Probably not. Hopefully not.
Do your dogs run away?
They don't understand a word I say, so they don't.
Does your family shun you for the rest of your life?
Not because of the speech.
Do you lose all your money? Does somebody blow up your car? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, this is the thing. So thank you for sharing that. So the worst case scenario is really never really that bad. The worst thing that could probably happen to you in a public speaking engagement or whatever is that you look stupid.
Yeah.
Or you're embarrassed. Or you mess it up.
Yeah.
But like your significant other probably doesn't leave you.
Yeah.
You don't lose all your friends. You don't lose all your money. I know that the first couple times I was speaking, I think I was in Pittsburgh one time. Yeah, I think it was Pittsburgh. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, but I think it was Pittsburgh. I was speaking and I had a really like 102 temperature. I was super sick, could barely talk. And I remember like walking up thinking like, I'm going to fuck this up so bad because I'm so sick. I don't even want to be here. I just want to go back to the hotel and lay down.
Yeah.
And as I was walking up and I started talking and my voice came back a little bit. I started thinking in my head, I was like, you know what? My wife and kids aren't here.
Yeah.
And if I mess this up, like, they're not going to care.
Yeah.
If anything, they're going to feel like compassion for me. They're not going to be like, they're not going to leave me. Like, my wife isn't going to leave me because of that. She's going to leave me for my tank top addiction and my 80s music maybe, but not that. So I think keeping in perspective what actually can happen to you if you bomb something, like what's the worst case scenario, just kind of like lightens the pressure on you significantly. The other thing I would say in doing that is to get there early and walk the room. Mm-hmm. This is something that I think that a lot of people don't do, and I think that it's really important to do, whether you're in a big, hall, big hall with a big stage, or you're in a gym or you're in a meeting or whatever. Get there early. Be the first person there. Walk the room. Get used to the lighting. Get used to like the stage. Get used to the environment. Have the chairs. Like sit in the chairs. I used to do this. Is like sit in a couple different chairs in the audience to see what it looks like up on the stage. I did a speech in Phoenix one time, and I didn't do that. And I think because at the time I felt like, I was hot shit. So I was like, oh, I don't need to do that. Why would I need to do that? And get on the stage, dude. It was a fucking rotating stage.
Nice.
Yeah. So as it is, I don't like motion as it is and get half motion sickness anyway. So you can picture me giving a speech as the stage is like rotating like this, like every 10 degrees every minute.
Weird.
It was super weird. And I don't think I did a good job, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But so again, that's something simple. Get there early, get the feel of the room and understand what it's going to be like when you're there.
It sounds like several of the items that you're suggesting, getting there early, rehearsing beforehand, is all about putting into context like what this actually means. Mm-hmm. Even the very idea, like if you're getting anxiety over something like this, it's probably because you have placed way too much weight on the significance of this little moment and like the idea 100%. Of being judged or even like looking like a fool or something like that. Like it generally how much of a fool can you really make of yourself if you're talking about, you're talking about real estate, I'm talking about working out or something.
Right.
Like there's not that much that there is to like, you get the hiccups or something like that. Like,
right.
Yeah, so what? And so it's really making a mountain out of a molehill if you're like getting severe anxiety in these situations where there are way bigger problems, most likely in your life than this like next speech. And if you can like give yourself constant reminders, like you're doing that situation, like sitting in different chairs and getting an impression of like, what is the person who's going to be listening to you going to be feeling like, or what is their perspective going to be, or practicing beforehand. Right. It just allows you to kind of like wrap your head around what this entire experience is like and make it into more of a realistic expectation as to like how appropriate it is for you to be anxious in this situation, because it probably is appropriate for you to be like have this like heightened
definitely
excitement.
And
like
you'd be crazy not to.
It makes you more personable. It makes you like probably sharper and quicker and things like that. But it can be paralyzing if people get like too deeply like into that stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I think that the other thing about that is that we have to remember is that when you're going, like, think of any time you've gone to see somebody speak, mm-hmm. right? And whether it's a workout thing or something else, like, would you say that you're rooting for the person, or are you walking in like actively disliking,
hoping they bomb?
Yeah,
I mean, no. Of course, that's not my answer. If you're going to a person and who's like speaking and all that stuff, and it's not like a captive audience, like certainly like you're already going. Usually, I'm there because I wanted to hear what this person had to say,
right?
Unless it's like my sister's graduation from something or other, and I'm like, I don't care.
But if in that situation, you're at least neutral.
Yeah. And in that situation, I'm just like, get me out of this hot sun. I don't like. Yeah. I don't really care that much, but nonetheless, you're in a neutral position, and it's doesn't have that pressure.
And that's the thing is like, I think that to keep in mind is like, most of the people in the audience are rooting for you. Like they're rooting for you to be successful. They're like open to you being successful and giving a good speech.
Yeah.
Most people are not walking in saying, God, I hope this guy bombs.
Yeah.
Or I hope she sucks. Like, I hope this is like the worst speech ever. Like they don't want to do that because then it's wasting their time.
Do you think some people want that? Like ever?
I do. I think it's happened to me. Like it's happened to me a couple times where I felt, and this is just another, kind of a tip, but you're not really going to go into it, but like, so if I'm giving a speech and say there's, a couple hundred people there, I try to make eye contact and I look for friendly faces. I look for friendly faces in the front. And what I mean by that is like, if I'm saying something, someone's like nodding along. Yes. Or they're smiling. I try to like talk to that person, and then I'll talk to someone in the back left who I see doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But invariably you will see people who've got like, they're sitting like this and their legs are crossed and their arms are crossed, and they're like looking at their watch or staring at their phone.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I'm like, I think two things. I think, well, I lost that guy, and that's fine. And also, what he's doing is super disrespectful. Like, I don't do that. Like, why is someone doing that to me? Mm-hmm. Because if you can't give me, you're in there. If nothing else, you could give me the courtesy of listening to what I have to say.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened too often. Usually you can find more friendly faces because I think most people are rooting for you when you're going to give a speech. They're not looking to vilify you and hammer you for what you're doing. Yeah. So I think that's the key. Last thing I would say, and then we're going to say goodbye to the podcast, but I do want to talk about basketball.
Okay.
I think that's going to be important. But last thing I would say is like, when you're giving a speech is to be yourself, mm-hmm. right? Like, so the way I present versus the way you would present, it's totally different.
Mine's probably way better. Yours way worse.
I would say different. No, yours is better. But no, seriously, it's like be yourself. Don't try to be someone else, because I think that like the way EDP might present versus how you might present, they're just different.
Got to be you.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're trying to present in a way that somebody else, like, because you think this is the style, but that kind of just conflicts with your personality and whatnot, then you're going to be probably in a position where it doesn't come across as authentic, or you feel like you're
shit. That's actually what I was going for more than anything. Blake stole it. Let's just for the record, let's say Blake was staring at my notes, even though I don't have that right now.
Yeah.
But being authentic, that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're talking, that was really nice. Really jump on it. I got nothing else. You have anything else?
Did you want to talk about basketball on
We do.
here?
But so, yes. So anyway, so this is the end of the podcast. Check out Blake on Instagram at Blake Bender and
Blake.Bender.
Blake.Bender.
There's a lot of Blake Benders out there, evidently.
There's a lot of Blake Benders out there. And then I started a new one too, Jim Simcoe Coaching. I don't know what's going to happen. I have 12 followers right now.
Nice.
It's pretty swell.
I'm one of those 12.
You're one of the 12.
Your wife is another one of those 12, I assume.
Yeah, she sure is. Love that woman. She's so great.
Blasting off.
But thanks for listening to the podcast. I'm actually gonna on this one. I'm gonna put a bunch of show notes.
Yeah,
because this is kind of a longer topic, but I'll give some other insight. And if anyone has any questions, by all means, email us. And thank you, Aaron and Julia and Joe, who wanted this topic to be one of the topics we talked about on the podcast.
Aaron, Julia, and Joe. I know them. I think.
Yeah,
I know Aaron,
the
Julia,
triplets.
Joe.
I love them.
Cool. Hi guys.
Thanks for listening. And now, basketball.
Yeah.
Playoffs. What do you think? Let's give me 2 minutes on basketball right now.
I have no skin in the game, first of all.
I know. And why is that? This is the part that everyone
because basketball is a dumb sport and I'm not
who are you a fan of?
My Kings have not been in the playoff in a league record, I don't know, 15 years or so.
That's the Sacramento Kings.
And I have watched every one of these debilitating, terrible seasons, and this was the most enjoyable in the last 15 years, and we still didn't make the playoffs.
Pretty good season.
But it's because we're in the Western Conference, and if we were in the Eastern Conference, we'd be like the third seed above the Celtics. Wouldn't it be playing all this shitty competition?
It's not because you're in the Western Conference. It's because you guys don't win enough games to make the playoffs.
Well, I know, but we'd win a lot more games if we were playing with the inferior competition in the Eastern Conference.
And I think if I was 7 feet tall, I would be in the NBA too. So yeah, there's a lot.
I don't think you would be. You play basketball.
Probably not. What do you think about Luke Walton as a coach?
Luke Walton, who's recently hired as the Kings coach, I'd say doesn't matter one way or the other to me. He said he's going to shoot a lot of threes, which I'm looking forward to. Maybe that translates into more wins, but I don't know. How much does coaching really matter in the NBA? Like
basketball, I don't think it does at all.
The best,
do you?
The best. I mean, it might be the difference of a few wins a season or something like that, but like ultimately, doesn't talent win out? Like, there's a reason that the Celtics are mediocre, and
they're not mediocre. First of all, they're in the playoffs.
The Warriors are,
they're the fourth-ranked team in the Eastern Division.
Yeah, so not so good.
So so you don't think so? Brad Stevens. So if you took Brad Stevens and swapped him with Luke Walton,
yeah,
do you think the Celtics win the same amount of games? You think it's different?
I think it's a coin flip because like one strategy of a team is going to maybe influence the likelihood by a small amount, like maybe that gives you 10%. But even so, like most games aren't won or lost by 2 points and like tiny little coaching decisions. Most games have like bigger swings than that, things like that. I don't know, but
that's a good point.
Who knows?
So who do you think wins the championship this year?
I assume Warriors. I think Houston's the only one with a real shot.
Who do you think comes out of the East? So you got Toronto, Milwaukee, Celtics.
Yeah,
Philly.
I'm gonna go Toronto. I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I kind of hope Milwaukee, just because like small market team.
Celtics are gonna. So here's what I think. What's gonna happen? Celtics are going to take care of Indiana, which means they're going to get matched up with Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Milwaukee has been the best team all year, but they cannot beat the Celtics. They just can't do it.
What is the record on the season between Celtics and?
I think they lost all 4.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. And do you know why? Because Giannis however the hell you say it. How do you say his name?
Antetokounmpo.
Yeah. Antetokounmpo to you too. He played, or Halford, the guy on our team.
Yeah.
Dreamy eyes.
Man, that guy's gorgeous eyes.
He's a gorgeous eyes. Gorgeous Al, for whatever reason, has Giannis's number.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like another basketball situation I'm sure you could think of where like one guy just wins all the time with his team.
Despite the physically superior specimen.
Well, I mean, it comes down to wins and losses, right? Like, so even if the one guy is physically superior, but he can't beat the other guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's like, that's just kind
sometimes it's the teammates that matter though.
For any of you who know, we're actually talking about our basketballs. We've actually never really talked about this on the podcast. Let's talk about that.
And maybe we shouldn't.
Let's talk about it right now. So we have 1 more minute. And then I gotta go warm up for class. Let's talk about it. So we played basketball
twice.
We've played basketball on 2 different occasions.
Yeah.
But we've played multiple games on each one of those occasions.
The deal is that
tell everyone the deal.
So the deal is that every time we come into these games, Jim gets the first draft pick. He inevitably gets the best player or players. And
well, you're saying it wrong though, because the 2 best players are you and Eric DePaula.
Usually not the case. I mean,
always the case. It's you and Eric DePaul, the two best.
Thank you for saying that.
And you can't be on the same team.
And
you and I can't be on the same team.
Because you and I can't be on the same team because
who am I going to talk shit to? Yeah.
Because we're bitter rivals.
The same way like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader are not on the same team.
And I can only make layups. I can't make anything outside of 5 feet.
This is true. Blake, though, can jump like 5 feet in the air. You are like human
which is helpful within 5 feet, but outside of that, it doesn't.
It's kind of useless anywhere else.
It is.
Unless you were like a professional parkour guy.
Yeah,
it's kind of useless anywhere else.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about basketball?
I just want a rematch, and
we're gonna play soon. Let's play soon.
Yeah, your shoulder's getting better. We're gonna do it.
Yeah,
we're playing 1-on-1 this time, though.
We're not playing 1-on-1.
We're definitely.
Well, hold on. We play 1-on-1. I want odds.
What?
Oh, what? I want odds. I want some type of advantage. I'm older than you. I'm like 30 years older than you.
Remember the time we played
20, really?
We played soccer. It was Jim versus me versus my dog Barkley. And Jim
was horrible.
Jim was in last place.
All 3 times.
And my dog didn't know he was playing a game.
The best part about this for the one person who's actually still listening to this podcast right now is that when we played soccer, the score, we played to 7, and Blake would be up 6-1, and I would say, "All right, we're switching the score
6-0." How dare you say you scored? Don't insult me.
We would switch the score, and then Blake would then still win,
and then win 6-7.
It's very disheartening to lose to somebody like this.
It's. I mean, to give the little context, though, I played soccer in college, and you learned about soccer when I said, "Hey, you want to play 1-on-1? You, me, and Barkley?"
Do you know how many times I've actually played in a soccer game in my life?
I assume
Take
0.
a guess. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've been on a soccer field once before, not including in here.
Because you were playing like flag football on a soccer field?
Playing football, softball, baseball, and lacrosse. Well, lacrosse is the same season as soccer, so I never. And honestly, I could never, as much as fun as I make of you being playing soccer, I could never do the whatever you call it, like kicking the ball and running with it.
Kicking, yeah.
What is it called? Dribbling. Yes, I could not do that.
Dribbling.
Very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we've bored everybody to death right now, right? Thank you, whatever listener we have left.
Yeah, bye. Good to be talking to you, Mom.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye,
this is
everyone.
Blake and Chip. This is Blake saying goodbye.
Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast today. Really appreciate you guys listening in. If you like what you heard, please leave a review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And you can always check us out online at heroupmedia.com. Heroupmedia.com. Talk to you guys soon.